wake up before the alarm even has a chance to ring. You always do. It is 3:14 a.m. and the digital clock on the cheap bedside table casts a pale, sickly red glow across the peeling wallpaper of your motel room. You are somewhere in a forgotten, rain-soaked coastal town in southern Spain, though you barely remember the drive here. The air in the room is thick, smelling of stale cigarette smoke, damp carpets, and the unmistakable, metallic scent of your own cold sweat. You do not move immediately. You lie there in the dark, perfectly still, letting your eyes adjust, listening to the agonizingly slow drip of the bathroom faucet. You are listening for something else, too. A footstep in the gravel outside. The soft click of a lock being picked. The heavy, syncopated breathing of men who have come to erase you. When you finally sit up, your joints ache with the accumulated tension of a man who hasn't truly slept in 7 months. You walk to the window, avoiding the floorboards you already know will creak, and peel back a millimeter of the curtain to look at the street below. Nothing. Just a stray dog sniffing a garbage bag and the flickering neon light of a closed pharmacy. But the absence of immediate danger brings no relief. You know they are out there. You know that Europe's most ruthless syndicate does not simply forget a debt, and they certainly do not forgive a betrayal, even an accidental one. You are a ghost, haunting your own life, perpetually waiting for the moment they finally catch up. It wasn't always like this. Not that long ago. And you were a man who wore tailored Italian suits and drank vintage espresso in the glass-paneled high-rises of Rotterdam and Antwerp. You were never a street-level thug. You never touched a weapon, never got your hands dirty in the squalid alleys where the actual product was sold. You were a logistics specialist, an architect of the invisible supply chain. In the modern underworld, the real power doesn't lie with the men who pull the triggers. It lies with the men who understand customs regulations, maritime shipping manifests, and digital encryption. The syndicate you worked for, a terrifyingly efficient coalition of Balkan kingpins and Moroccan drug lords operating out of luxury penthouses in Dubai, controlled the flow of South American cocaine into Europe. They needed people like you to grease the wheels. And now you were the one who approached the crane operators at the port, offering them more money in a single duffel bag than they would make in a decade of honest labor, just to move a specific shipping container to a blind spot away from the security cameras. You were the one who bought off the customs inspectors, the ones who would conveniently look away when a shipment of bananas from Colombia arrived slightly heavier than the paperwork claimed. You remember the profound, intoxicating arrogance of those days. You felt untouchable. The machinery of the syndicate was a marvel of dark capitalism. Everything was compartmentalized. You communicated exclusively through specialized encrypted phones, devices stripped of their cameras, microphones, and GPS trackers. You're running on custom networks that the salesman swore were mathematically impossible for the police to crack. You would send a brief, alphanumeric message, and thousands of miles away, a ship would alter its course, or €1,000,000 in cash would be transferred through an underground Hawala network. It felt like playing a grand abstract video game. The money, the drugs, the lives ruined at the end of the supply chain, none of it felt real. It was all just data on a screen, profit margins on a spreadsheet. You bought a luxury apartment, you drove a German sports car. You convinced yourself that because you didn't see the violence, you were insulated from it. You believed you were a sophisticated businessman operating in a gray area of the global economy, are completely ignoring the fact that the men paying your exorbitant commissions were entirely capable of torturing a rival to death in a soundproofed shipping container just a few miles from your office. The illusion of safety shattered on a Tuesday in November. It was raining, a cold, miserable European drizzle. You were sitting in your favorite cafe, nursing a flat white, when your encrypted phone buzzed. It was a message from a contact high up in the organization, a man known to you only by a bizarre screen name. The message was unusually brief. The network is compromised. Europol has the keys. They are reading everything. Burn it all. Run. For a terrifying suspended second, your brain refused to process the words. The impenetrable network, the foundation of the entire empire, Abe had been secretly hacked by international law enforcement months ago. Every message, every photo of a cash drop, every coordinated port extraction, the police had been quietly collecting it all. But your immediate terror wasn't the police. A prison sentence in a European jail with its warm meals and library access suddenly seemed like a luxurious vacation. Your terror was the syndicate. In the criminal underworld, a massive bust doesn't just mean lost revenue. It demands a scapegoat. When 3 tons of product vanish at the port of Antwerp because of a compromised network, the bosses in Dubai do not blame the police. They blame the weak links. They blame the logistics guys. They blame you. Panic, cold, and absolute gripped your chest. You didn't even finish your coffee. You walked to the nearest canal and dropped the encrypted phone into the dark, freezing water. You didn't go back to your luxury apartment. You knew better than that. You had already broken the first rule of the Underworld. Never believe you are irreplaceable. You had prepared a contingency plan for a day you hoped would never come. In a locker at the central train station, you had a go bag. Inside were 50,000 euros in small, unmarked bills, a prepaid burner phone, and a remarkably good fake Lithuanian passport. As you retrieved the bag, you caught a glimpse of yourself in the station's mirrored pillar. You looked like the same man, but your posture had fundamentally changed. You were no longer the predator. You were the prey. You boarded a train heading east, paying in cash. Sturcy, making sure to avoid the direct gaze of the security cameras. That was the day you ceased to exist. That was the day the paranoia moved in, taking up permanent residence in the back of your skull. The reality of being on the run from a cartel with infinite resources is not glamorous. It is a grueling, mind-numbing exercise in constant vigilance and severe deprivation. Hollywood movies make it look thrilling, full of high-speed chases and clever disguises. The truth is much quieter and vastly more terrifying. Your entire existence shrinks down to a series of risk assessments. You cannot use a credit card, ever. A single digital transaction is a flare shot into the night sky, alerting an army of highly paid hackers who are constantly scanning databases for your name. You cannot log into your old social media accounts to check on your family. You know the syndicate is watching your parents' house, tapping their phones, waiting for you to make a moment of emotional weakness. The emotional isolation is crushing. You are carrying a heavy, toxic secret that you can never share with another living soul. If you strike up a conversation with a friendly stranger in a bar, your mind races. Is he just a guy buying a beer, or is he a spotter for the organization? You move constantly, from Berlin to Prague, from a cheap hostel in Budapest to this rotting motel in Spain. You travel exclusively by bus or regional trains, sitting near the exits, memorizing the layout of every vehicle you enter. You change your appearance, shaving your head, growing a ragged beard, adopting a slight limp to alter your gait. But you know that facial recognition technology is everywhere, silently scanning crowds at every major transit hub. More frightening than the cameras, however, are the syndicate's spotters. The organization employs networks of taxi drivers, hotel clerks, and nightclub bouncers across the continent, offering bounties for information on ghosts like you. You learn to recognize the signs of a tale: a car that makes 3 identical turns, a man reading a newspaper who never actually turns the page. You sleep with a heavy iron crowbar under your mattress, knowing full well that if the hit squad finally arrives, a piece of metal won't save you against silenced submachine guns. You remember reading the news articles before you went underground. You remember the stories of what the syndicate does to those who cost them money. The police raids in rural areas where they found soundproofed shipping containers outfitted with dentist chairs, power tools, and chemical baths. They don't just kill you, they dismantle you, slowly, to send a message to the rest of the organization. This terrifying knowledge is your constant companion. It sits with you while you eat your bland, canned beans in silence. It rides with you on the midnight bus across borders. The money in your go bag is slowly dwindling. 50,000 euros seemed like a fortune on the day you ran, but paying a premium for cash-in-hand rentals, buying black market medication, and bribing borders guards drains your reserves faster than you ever calculated. When the money runs out, what then? You cannot get a legitimate job. You cannot apply for government assistance. You are a man without a country. Without an identity, trapped in the shadows of the very continent you once helped exploit. You walk to the bathroom of the motel room and splash cold water on your face. You look in the mirror, but you barely recognize the hollow, exhausted eyes staring back at you. The expensive suits are long gone, replaced by generic, ill-fitting clothes designed to make you invisible. The arrogance of the Rotterdam days has been entirely burned away, leaving nothing but a raw, trembling shell of survival instinct. You realize, with a heavy, sinking feeling in your stomach, that the syndicate doesn't even need to find you to destroy you. They have already won. They have taken your life, your family, your identity, and your peace of mind. You are serving a life sentence in an invisible prison of your own making. And every knock on a door sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through your heart. Every siren in the distance makes your throat tighten. You are free, technically, but you have never been more trapped. You dry your face with a rough, cheap towel and walk back to the bed. You check the burner phone, no messages, just a blank, glowing screen. You pack your meager belongings back into the duffel bag. You have been in this town for 3 days, which means it is time to move again. Maybe you will head to Portugal. Maybe you will try to find passage on a cargo ship to North Africa. It doesn't really matter. The geography changes, but the fear remains exactly the same. You sit on the edge of the bed, waiting for the sun to rise, knowing that another day of running is about to begin. You are a dead man walking. Desperately trying to postpone a funeral that has already been scheduled. That is all for today. The story you just heard is fiction, but the reality of logistics operators hunted by European syndicates happens every day. If this story made you think, leave a comment telling us what your biggest takeaway was. Subscribe so you don't miss the next stories from the Underworld. Until next time.